Emboss resist is a fun technique to do, and it creates lots of glossy texture on the surface of your card project. But you can take emboss resist a step further by coloring in the images after applying the ink to create the look of stained glass. Let me show you the tools and products you're going to need to do this technique. First, you're going to need a rubber stamp that is a line art image that has some openings that you can color inside. Then you're going to need some Versamark ink, some clear embossing powder, and I'm using the Ranger Superfine Detail Clear, which is perfect for this delicate image. You're going to need an embossing anti-static pad, and what this does is this removes any oils and dirt or anything that would grab onto the embossing powder, because we only want the embossing powder to stick to the Versamark ink. You're also going to need a distress ink pad, and I'm using Vintage Photo, and I'm using a foam applicator to apply it. Then, I've chosen a few of the Bic markers. I'm only going to use 2 of these colors today. I think I'm going to use this peach one and this wine-colored one. And then, you're going to need some good quality cardstock, and I'm using the Gina K Designs Pure Luxury 120-pound base weight white cardstock. And I really like doing this technique on white because the white is very, very smooth. So is our ivory. So either one, the white or the ivory, is really nice to work with. Okay, so to begin, I'm going to start off by rubbing the surface of my cardstock with this anti-static pad. And again, that removes all of the oil or any kind of anything that could be sticky on there so that the embossing powder will only stick to my image. Then I'm going to ink up this image using a little bit of the Versamark ink. And I'm going to stamp that right in the center here. That's going to allow me to cut that image out using a large oval. Okay. Now, although you can't see that right now on television, what I'm going to do is take a little of this clear embossing powder and sprinkle it over that Versamark ink. And there you might be able to pick up a little bit of that, a little bit of the powder on there. But once you emboss it, you'll be able to see it come up nice and shiny. Okay. Next, I'm going to take a heat tool, and I'm using the Marvy heat tool. And for our international customers, we do sell the Marvy heat tool, but it is with the American plug. So if you are going to purchase a heat tool, make sure it works with your country's electricity. Okay. I'm going to emboss this, and it's going to start to come up nice and shiny. This is such a fun little delicate image. Okay. And this image is from the Falling for You Stamp TV kit. Now my next step is you want to make sure that that's completely cool before you start. And I'm going to take a little bit of this Vintage Photo ink and rub that foam applicator on top. And then I'm going to start right in the center. Rather than coming in from the outside like you would if you were just highlighting the edge, I really want the darkest part of this ink to be in the center of the image. So I'm going to start right in the center, and I'm going to start rubbing outward. Getting lighter as I go along the outside. So the darkest part of my ink is over the image. Once you've inked up your image, you want to take a piece of paper towel and rub that over the surface of the image to remove any ink that might be stuck on top of that embossing powder. Like that. Then, it's time to add a little bit of color. So I'm going to start off with this Prairie Berry Bic Market, And I'm going to color in these areas, being careful not to go outside of the lines. Now, if you do go outside of the lines, it's okay. You can rub that off with a paper towel as well, but it won't stick to any of your embossing powder. So the more you stay inside the lines, the better. And because it's permanent marker, you'll see what happens when I actually rub over this, because I am getting a little bit on the embossing powder. You're going to see it will turn some of that embossing powder a very light pink because it's a permanent ink, and it will stain just about any hard surface. So it will actually stain a little bit of that embossing powder. But that's okay, because that actually looks a little bit pretty. So I'm going to rub that. Okay. And now I'm going to use this peach color. And this is called Peach Parfait. And I'm going to color the bottoms here of these flowers. And you'll be able to see the contrast a little bit better when you're doing this yourself. So I've added a little bit of peach in there. And again, you can use all different kinds of colors. You can use blues and greens and a little bit of everything. And what's nice about it is even when you use a bright blue or a bright green, because it's coloring over brown, it will mute it down quite a bit and it'll look pretty. Let me show you my finished card project. What I've done here is I've cut that image out using the classics ovals, and then I've used the lacy ovals behind it, so those coordinate really nicely together. And then I used the mega long oval, and I stamped Bloom Like a Wildflower, which is also one of the greetings from the Falling for You Stamp TV kit, and cut that out and did the same kind of sponging around in there so it would coordinate nicely with my focal image. And then I've used a little bit of pattern paper and cardstock from the Falling for You kit and some copper brads from the kit as well. And I've created these neat little corners using the Tonic ticket tag punch. And you can see that that is just such a nice little card, and that little bit of color makes those flowers almost look like little stained glass images and really makes them pop. Try this technique using line art images with lots of open space for broader areas of color. And try using a rainbow effect by using lots of varying colors to make the focal image stand out even more.